Hello, everyone. This is Akhier, and I just saw My Neighbor Totoro in theater. And let me get my reaction to it out of the way because obviously if you follow the channel, last month I went and saw Ponyo because that was the first one that they did. This month is My Neighbor Totoro. As I said last time, I have not actually seen any Studio Ghibli movies until now. I was shocked because I thought I had. But now that I've seen My Neighbor Totoro, it is amazing. It is lovely. It is a mystical slice of life that just breathes life into a wonderful depiction of the Japanese countryside. And it has just... I said it last time, I'll say it again this time. There are some movies where when you see it in a theater on the big screen with the surround sound, it just elevates it. Some movies I could watch right here on my screens and be perfectly fine, get similar experience. Like, maybe the sound wouldn't be as good. I've got some junk speakers, and I should probably get new ones by now. They're kind of on the fritz. But, money. But yeah, some movies you can do that. And then you go and see in theaters, and it's about the same. So far, Studio Ghibli has shown that spark, that essence that lets it so that on the big screen, the movie, the film, the animation breathes. It has a soul. Not that other movies don't. It's just that My Neighbor Totoro, Ponyo, and I assume like the rest of them I'm going to see, which I'll tell you if I feel this way. They were designed, they were created, they were imbued with an essence that when seen on the big screen with all of that, it just does something that is magical in a way that more movies should be. Like, that's the point. The reason why we have movie theaters is for movies that are big. Even if it's like a small character, like Stuart Little or, oh god, I was just going to say the other mouse except the chef, Remy. Obviously thinking a mouse, it's going to be a small character. Or is Remy a rat? I think Remy's a rat. But like, not the size of who's in it or the scenery or whatever, but rather the heart of it is so big that the screen size actually does help. Like, My Neighbor Totoro is going to be lovely even if I watch it on like a tiny screen on my phone, which, like, I don't know if that's really a good way to watch many things. Then again, I don't have the best of phones. Like, someone has one of those big phones with the big resolutions. Maybe it'll be perfectly fine. But there's a reason that there is a certain magic, a fantasy, a thing given to the silver screen as compared to just like a movie or just anything else. The theater, the act of going somewhere in a controlled environment where your entire field of vision, especially if you go to like one of the IMAX or something, like did a few of those things. Or what's it called where it's like literally surround, and it's like saw it at like the Smithsonian, or was it Smithsonian? I think so. And like just where it's like, nature. But I've rambled enough about that, and it's like just giving my feeling of My Neighbor Totoro is enhanced by being seen in theaters. Moving on, I saw it subtitled. I decided at this point that I think I'm going to just see all of them subtitled. Nothing against the dubbed ones. There was actually, after My Neighbor Totoro finished, there was a making of featurette included with the thing, and that was pretty nice. It was fun to watch the person that went and breathed life into the story explain, like, they wanted to capture that feeling of a city kid out in the countryside and, like, rediscovering the beauty of Japan. And, like, that was amazing. But a part of that, they showed clips from the movie. And they were the dubbed versions. So I got to experience the dubs a tiny bit. A minuscule quantity. And I don't know what it is, but it wasn't worse. However, my personal preference is to listen and watch with the original Japanese with subtitles. I will admit, I'm a bit spoiled with subtitles. If you aren't a quick reader, they could get away from you. If you aren't, like, if it requires more attention to read, it can draw you away from the lovely thing. If you are someone that even just, like, is a regular reader, I wouldn't necessarily advise the subtitles, because the dubs, in this case, are just as good. Like, Disney did a wonderful job of it, from everything I've heard and the little tiny bit I've seen. However, for me, personally, I've never counted it, but hours every day. I finish the subtitles before the people on screen are finished talking. And I'm able to, like, multitask a bit where I'm reading and I'm also paying attention to the screen. So for me, the subtitles do not get in my way of understanding the film and watching it. Which is an interesting little quirk for me. And also, I tried to learn Japanese. I went to many semesters in college. I did self-learning for a bit before that. Most of what I keep from that is being able, if I see not the actual Japanese characters, but the transliteration where it's the English letters, I can read it out as it's meant to. Tsunami. And, well, everyone knows tsunami, or most people do. But, like, I know what the various characters are supposed to sound like. So, Hayao Miyazaki. It's like, I might stumble a little bit, but it's something where I keep that. Along with that, I also have a bunch of general verbiage. So, I listen to it and I hear the general greetings and stuff, and that adds an extra depth, because I have, even if I don't actively remember it, I have a general, like, in my head, what the various ways of talking about things means. Like, Kasan is like, I don't know if I pronounce it right, but, like, it's like, I'm not going to say what I think it is, because by thinking about it, I instantly like, but is that true? But I understand, like, how formal it is meant to be. And so by watching it subtitled with that tiny, tiny itch at the back of my head, it provides an extra depth to the film for me personally. And honestly, I have a thing about me where I love to experience something as it was originally meant to be. When I go eat at a place, like, not obviously like a fast food, but like at an actual restaurant, and I order a thing, even if I end up adding stuff later, I like to have at least a few bites of whatever it is before changing it. Because in theory, what you get on the plate is supposedly what the chef intended you to have. Obviously, that isn't the case in most places. In theory, the idea being that that's more for a high-end restaurant. However, I do like to get a feel for what was originally intended. And the same thing happens here. It actually goes back to animation. Why I have this? Because as a kid, I really loved Digimon, the original classic series of Digimon. And it was good. And then I stumbled upon the subtitled version of it later on the internet. And I realized, this is different. And I couldn't quite put into words until I looked into it a bit more. And this isn't like what happened with the dub of My Neighbor Totoro or any of the others. Disney put money in to get this right. However, early on, translations from I was trying to say multiple countries, from like Chinese, Japanese, and stuff like that. Translations from over there. They did a lot of work to make it Americanized. There's a proper word for it. I was pausing because I couldn't remember it. Localization. Yeah. Except not... The most classic funny one is Pokemon in the original where Brock makes donuts. It's a hilarious thing because those aren't donuts. Anyone with half a knowledge of what Japanese culture has, those are... Oh God, how am I forgetting? The rice triangles. Yeah, when I actually try to think about Japanese words and stuff, it starts just like flowing out of my ear like, ha ha, you want to remember stuff? Nah. But like, stuff like that. And the Digimon, what they did with a lot of it, it's very evident in some of the early ones, which is why it hits me a lot, because I saw the early ones often. Just because whenever there was like a rerun of it, I'd religiously start watching it, and then as time went on, maybe I dropped it. So like, I've seen like the first few episodes of the original Digimon series multiple times at this point. So the difference is kind of stark. The original Japanese version, there's just points where it's just a scenery and the characters moving and it's silence. In the dub, the 4Kids dub, first of all, they went and made Tai the narrator, which he's a kid, and they wrote it from his perspective. So, but then you have like these lovely scenes and the kids just walking, and then you just have Tai like nattering on about something. And so because of that experience, I've seeked out the original whenever I can, whenever it's practical. Even to the point of, like, there's some things where, like, obviously I don't read Japanese or Chinese or Korean. However, sometimes I will actually go and get the original text and throw in, like, a translator, and that's horrible. You cannot read that. However, it gives me a certain feeling for it that I don't get other ways. Like the fingerprint of the author is easier to see when you're getting close to the source material. And that's kind of just how I've stumbled into this position. I just read a lot. I have this... honestly, it's probably partly just my whole mental makeup and whatnot that just kind of like needs to go and delve into what is there at the base of a structure. And with My Neighbor Totoro, because I'm bringing it back, with My Neighbor Totoro, it is a lovely slice of life kind of just... There is a story to it. There's events that happen. There's moments of tension. But it's not... There's no villain. There's no overarching end-of-the-world plot or something. It's just the life of a couple Japanese girls who moved out to the countryside, and their mother's in the hospital, and their father's working somewhere else, and like... the house they're in starts out haunted, but not like we think of haunted, but in more of the just there's like little dust sprites because it was empty, so they moved in and made it dusty. And then the youngest sister just ends up going into the forest and following basically spirits, and it's like ends up meeting Totoro. And like it's just a lovely story. And I really I'm kind of sad because I went and saw it, and I don't know when it'll be in theaters again. And I have relatives, young relatives, and I would have loved to have taken them to see it with me. And obviously bring their family along as well. It's like it wasn't going to be just me. But like going and seeing this film with kids. Because as an adult, it touched me. As a kid, it would be everything. And it just feels like a missed opportunity. After Ponyo, it's like, that one was like a little bit, yeah, I'd take the kids to see it, and that's fine. But also, there's just an element where it's like, this is a bit more serious than I want. Because they're still young. Like, Ponyo, once I get a bit older, I'd want to see it with them. But My Neighbor Totoro, while there are serious things depicted, like I said, their mom is in the hospital. But there's just elements of it that even though they are serious, there's something that I think just, it doesn't matter. It has the same feeling I have about Christmas. Christmas is a nice holiday. It's fine. Unless you have young kids that still have that starry-eyed innocence where it's just like, and they're not even being greedy about the toys. They're just like, oh my, this is so amazing. Look at this. It's toys, and I can play with, and that's the same kind of feeling that I felt I missed by just seeing it by myself. So, if this comes around again, I'll have to keep a look on it. If Studio Ghibli keeps doing these fests and stuff where it's like, oh yeah, you can see it in theaters. First of all, I'm going to see them again in theaters because there are some things that just are worth a second watch. But more than that, as I go through, Ponyo later on, but My Neighbor Totoro, I want to experience it with family, younger family who are seeing it for the first time, because as stupid traffic, it's just wonder and fantasy and just it's the story worth telling, done in an art style that will never get old. I grew up playing a lot of games, and they kept trying to be realistic and lifelike. And to this day, the ones that still play the best are the ones that just had their own style. It didn't matter how realistic they were. And then My Neighbor Totoro, the animation, the lovely just soul put into it. Just no notes. It's wonderful. I'm glad it was made for the big screen because that means it's still a decent resolution. Because that is like a problem that you come into. Like, if it was made for a tiny screen, like, it doesn't matter how good the art was if you don't have any of the original reels for it. Whereas My Neighbor Totoro, Ponyo, and presumably the rest, there are just that lovely animation. And yeah. Just as with Ponyo, My Neighbor Totoro, it deserves to be seen in theaters. And I hope they keep bringing it back to theaters, because I definitely, having seen it once, having seen it like I have, I want to see it again later on, once I've had time to let the memory of it kind of blur a bit, and I can go back and experience it again and brighten the colors and relive the wonder and joy. And like I said, bring my young relatives with me, because something like this, it gets thrown around too much. But a kind of timelessness to it that it is truly a wonder. And it doesn't need to be changed for the modern world, because even at the time, it wasn't the modern world. This is just like, this is what the countryside is. It still is in some places, but like, someone that came from the city and was like, oh, this is the world outside of just gray. I love this film. And yeah, I've got to end it because it's getting a little bit long. Like and subscribe, ring the bell, but above all else, this is Akhier, and I'm signing off.